The Matildas got the win in their first match of the 2026 Asian Cup. It won't go down as one of the classics, but it was comprehensive. 1-0 against the Philippines is 3 points, and in tournament football, you can't ask for too much more than that. They were never threatened in this tournament opener, with no warm-up, plenty of injury concerns, and being the first competitive match of football played under Joe Montemuro. Meanwhile, cracks are finally starting to show themselves on the A-League ladder. Do we have a solid top 5? And who is most likely from the chasing pack to fight their way into the 6? The Mariners are the team to finally break the Newcastle Jet's winning streak. Luka Jovanovic apologises for his open goal miss in a Facebook group and is clearing the ball very, very high into the air. The only thing Auckland need to do to score goals on this episode of the Round Ball Australia podcast. My name is Lachie Avil, and the first 10 minutes of the show you're going to hear tonight is an excerpt from the Dubcast Daily, a podcast that we're doing every day of the Women's Asian Cup tournament with myself and Poletti, breaking down the Matildas' performance against the Philippines. And then we're going into normal programming on the RBA pod with Christian and Will to break down and debrief the latest round of A-League action. Enjoy the show. Tillies, of course, got a 1-0 win against the Philippines on match day 1 of the competition. I think a lot of people would have expected a bigger scoreline than that, but if you watch the 90 minutes, the Tillies were never in danger of losing this game, Poletti. This was control absolutely everywhere on a football pitch, apart from maybe too comprehensive in the scoreline.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the opening to the tournament that you want. Like, a win is a win, ultimately, and I don't think it can be looked past that. You got to remember, this is a side that had a lot of players coming into camp like earlier this week, or given that you'll be listening to this on Monday, early last week. They haven't played together since the last international window. You've got players coming in on limited minutes, like the likes of Mary Fowler, who came off the bench late. She's only, she hasn't even had a full 90 minutes of game time yet for Manchester City. Kyra Cooney-Cross wasn't even in the matchday squad. Then there's other little, like the goalkeeper situation, right? Like that's just completely taken this tournament, the squad just completely out of whack, out of focus. Like, for the adversity that the team has had to go through this weekend coming into it, like, it's a result. You get the win, you move on. It's tournament football. You win all 3 of your group stage games, you're guaranteed to go through top of the group anyway. Goal difference, it might come into it for the likes of the Philippines, in which case this is an incredibly good result for the Philippines, particularly given, the last time they played the Matildas in Perth, it was an 8-0 loss. Overall, very good game. Yeah, you would have liked to have seen more goals, but a win's a win.
A win is a win, and this was statistical dominance. As you say, Philippines would be very happy really just to come away with a 1-goal deficit. We're in a tournament where lucky losers come into play for some of the third places in the group phase. 2 of the 3 go into the knockouts as well. So that's massive for them. All of a sudden they go into a game against Iran later in the tournament thinking that if they win that, they're going to have a pretty good chance of progressing, which is massive for them. But this was all Australia, really. And I'll give you a couple of stats here. I know you're not a big fan of XG, but 1.4 XG compared to 0.03 to the Philippines. 85% possession, which is down from 88% at halftime as well. They lost a little bit in the second half. 595 completed passes to just 41 from the Philippines. Seriously, there was no way, unless it came from a massive, massive Australian mistake, that the Philippines were ever going to score a goal. And if Sam Kerr doesn't get the header, if, Ford doesn't get the header across the face, and names escapes me, Claire Wheeler doesn't get that ball in, and maybe we go into halftime at 0-0 and it drags on without Australia taking the lead, then you get a little bit nervy. But with that early goal especially, and there could have been more through the likes of the Emily Van Egmond header as well a little bit later in the half, as soon as you had that advantage, you never felt like the Matildas were going to lose it. And as you say, there is a big element of building into this tournament, not just the fact with the players coming in relatively close to the start, there's the injury situations as well, but also the fact that this is Joe Montemuro's first competitive game in charge of the team. And you can see a lot of the style that he's tried to implement on the team in these like friendlies building up. The kind of three at the back with Ellie Carpenter rolling up the right-hand side, and that midfield three is very fluid. Any one of them can come and drop into the six at any point. You can see Montemuro's fingerprints on this team, and hopefully as the tournament goes on and you play more competitive matches, that will only grow as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Montemuro said in the post-game press conference, I did have it up here, that, the players are allowed to be free, they're allowed to move around, and he hinted at this in his squad selection press conference as well, is that he doesn't have a set system per se that's easily identifiable in the way that, it's a 4-2-4 or a 4-3-3. It's very fluid, and the players are allowed to, they've got the freedom to move around, and you saw that with the fact that Carpenter got up high, but then, Claire Wheeler, who was the number 6, basically right at the, at the attacking corner flag when she puts that cross in, which Catley delivers back to Sam Kerr. Look, I've certainly been critical of how long it took to appoint Montemuro, and I think we tackled this when the announcement took place, that this is someone who should have been in the role for the 12 months preceding that. We shouldn't have gone through the Tom Samani era of the Matildas, and that's not a knock on Tom Samani. It's just he was never going to be the permanent coach. We should have got Montemuro in when we had the chance to. It's come a little bit later than everyone would have liked, but it's happened now. It's only it's only going to be a good thing that they've got that first game out of the way. They didn't have a warm-up game. We have to remember that. This was their warm-up game, and it just so happened to be the tournament opener. Of course, things are going to be a little bit rusty and, taking time. So, they've got this game out of the way now, and they've got the 90 minutes in the leg, some of them, others, 60, 70-ish minutes or so, but they've got the time in the legs now, and they can turn their full focus to Iran in a couple of days' time, and hopefully there'll be a much better performance there. But overall, like Montemuro said, he was, said that he was, mostly happy with the performance. It was a very hard defense to break down. Hence, depending on the shots on the shots on target, trying to get all that together didn't necessarily, result in the score line that the Matildas would have wanted. And you got to absolutely shout out Olivia McDaniel in goal as well. It was a heck of an effort from her.
Yeah, absolutely. And so fine margins, like the Van Egmond header. Hayley Rozo puts away a goal with a really nice ball from Katrina Gorry over the top, but it's just a hair offside. All, those two things go your way, and all of a sudden this is like quite literally the perfect performance, like 3-0 convincing scoreline, plus all those stats that prove your dominance. Philippines never threatening on goal. It's everything you want. So I think overall, from a team perspective, there's no red flags. I don't think, the whole just 1-0 storyline is very valid at all. I think it's a very comprehensive performance. And then you look at some of the individuals as well. You mentioned Claire Wheeler. I thought she was outstanding in midfield, probably one of the best players on the pitch. Obviously, Sam Kerr getting her goal in her home, state and town. It's a wild thing that happens when you train all week at a football centre named after you. Goals seem to come. That would have been quite a unique experience for her as well. And Mary Fowler coming off the bench as well for that last 25 minutes or so definitely proved a spark. And then you mentioned the story of Chloe Lincoln, which I think is worth expanding on as well. Quite literally, I'm sure she would have got a phone call from someone, maybe Joe, maybe not Joe, maybe one of the staff saying a couple of weeks ago, unfortunately, you've missed out on the squad, or, you see the squad come through and you're not in it. And then a couple of weeks later, she's starting in the first game of the tournament, thanks to, literally 3 very unfortunate injuries to the 3 keepers that were listed in the squad for the tournament. It's quite astounding.
Yeah. We've spent time, myself and Burke, who'll be back, who'll be back soon enough. She's at the games, she's going through press duties, which is why she's not here with us right now. Who was going to be the third keeper? Was it going to be Wyman? Was it going to be Lincoln? Was it going to be Sally James? Or just someone else completely entirely? And yeah, it's just been one issue after another. Tegan Micah obviously got, has had a relapse in her concussion. She's got a new concussion, it's taken time to recover from. And then literally in the last 24 to 48 hours, Jada Wyman goes down. So, going from not being in the squad at all, which, to now she's starting the opening game in her first ever, senior women's Asian Cup. It's remarkable. And Teo Palazzari was reporting on Sunday when the news broke that Jada Wyman had been pulled out of camp, that his mail was that Wyman was going to start. She was going to finally get that elusive first Matildas cap that is just completely, dogged her for so many years. And then Montemiro said after the game when he was asked about it by the media that that it was just a training injury, and unfortunately it came back with a knee injury, and that she had to withdraw, and that Mackenzie Arnold is fine. It's just a little bit of tightness in the calf, so not worth risking, I don't think, at this stage, because suddenly she plays this game, does a calf in, and well, it's Chloe Lincoln number one the entire way through the tournament, and Morgan Aquino, and if any of those two go down, one goalkeeper, anyone? Can you get through the tournament with one goalkeeper?
Yeah, so it's worth noting, officially, the two of those injuries to Wyman and then of course, Tegan Micah, happened early enough so that they could be officially replaced in the full squad. So in comes Chloe Lincoln and in comes Morgan Aquino. The squad is now set. So in terms of injuries, that's the end of the road, right? You got to deal with what you got.
Yep. As far as I'm aware, it is 24 hours before the first game. Once the first game takes place, once that period passed, that's it. It's done. Squad's locked in. So if anyone goes down now, well, sorry. Unfortunately, it is what it is. Which, and that's just an extra reason as to not play Mackenzie Arnold, particularly with tightness. Like that calf should, untighten itself. Is that even the correct medical term?
Loosen. There you go.
There we go. As the tournament progresses, and presumably then Montemiro will bring her back into the squad. But we've talked about it a bit with Chloe Lincoln. She hasn't exactly had the best of seasons for Brisbane Roar. Hasn't quite hit the peak of her powers that she had at Canberra, that she had at Western, that she had for the young Matildas. Previously, and so she not have a lot to do in that game, just settle into the first major tournament as well. Couple of saves, nothing too major to have to worry about. It's probably the best start you could have hoped for, to be honest.
All right, I'm joined now by Christian and Will for your A-League debrief. Another good weekend of A-League football. Christian, in the season where we've said the league has been as tight as it ever is, we're seeing just our first couple of cracks start to form between the lead group and the chasers. It feels like we're getting a little bit more of a clearer image as to what the final series is going to shape up like.
Yeah, a little bit. The picture's a little bit more clear, but in saying that pack between 6th and 12th place, it's really anyone's. Like, you even look at the bottom place, Wellington, on 20 points. That obviously just lost to Sydney 1-0 at home. But you look at, it's about a 5-point gap between Macarthur, who is 6th, and Wellington have got 20 points in last spot. So it just goes to show how many points these smaller teams have been able to sort of pick up amongst one another, whether it be the bottom half or the top half. There's obviously a clear gap between, with the top two with the Jets and Auckland steering clear on 37, 35 respectively. But yeah, I think you could probably safely say that, that top four is pretty much secured, you'd say, for at least a top 6 berth. And then I don't think Victoria is safe by any means. I think they've still got some way to go. Maybe need to pick up a few more wins to guarantee themselves as well. But it's good for the competition. It's good for that competitiveness right until the last round. So looking forward to how it all shapes up at the end.
So you've hit pretty much the nail on the head in terms of the theme of what we're going to talk about today, and trying to kind of group these teams at least a little bit. Obviously, things can happen that we can't expect, but trying to kind of paint the picture of what the run-in to the finals might look like, Will. So we've got anywhere from 6 to 8 games to go, depending on who you are. I'm just seeing the Central Coast Mariners. They're the one team on 18 games played, so they've still got a fair run in. So in terms of getting their 2-point margin into the 6, cut down to 0, they're looking ahead of the curve. But we definitely feel like we have, obviously, the Newcastle Jets and Auckland FC, as Christian said, right up the top. And then Sydney picked up a win against Wellington on Sunday, and then Adelaide and Victory split the points on Friday night. And that pack, obviously, as Christian says, Victory are 2 points down. So there's still a little bit of jeopardy there. But when you look down to 6th, and it's a 3-point gap to Macarthur, and given that the tone that we've set this season, a 3-point gap is something, right? The 3-point gap to Macarthur, who are pretty much in free fall at the moment. They've got only 2 points from their last 4 games, not playing great in the league at all. And then that chasing pack of the Mariners down to Wellington is just 3 points. So that top 5, it feels like we have a little bit of separation, and maybe in the next couple of weeks that'll blow away even further. But it really looks like the likes of the Bulls, the Mariners, the Raw, even Melbourne City, just going for that kind of last spot to sneak in unless something miraculous happens.
Yeah, I mean, just how close this all is makes our job a lot harder. It's so hard to kind of draw any sweeping conclusions from anything that happens on a weekend, because it just changes the next weekend like that, right? But as you said, let's try and define a bit where these teams are sitting. And I think you can do that based off the form, especially of teams in that middle pack, right? So you've got the teams that are falling away. So Brisbane Roar and Melbourne City. Macarthur even sit in that as well. They're in a kind of downfall, and, you know, going into this weekend, they had a game against the bottom of the ladder. And you just can't lose those games 4-0. That's not a top 6 team. You don't deserve finals if you're losing to bottom of the ladder in that convincing a fashion. So that just shows where we're at. They're currently in the you know, in prime position for finals, but then they're losing the bottom place like that. So yeah, that, I mean, just results wise, that shows how close we are as a league, and all the teams are to each other. But yeah, to kind of split up that middle pack a bit more, I think, as you said, Lachie alluded to, that the Mariners have their games in hand as well still, and they're one of the informed teams in this competition right now. And then they just took points off Newcastle Jets. They'll be you know, licking their lips and eyeing that top 6 spot for sure, which it's just available this season. I think mentally you have to be prepared for such a roller coaster as a player of any of these teams. You have to kind of be strong enough to bounce back week by week. I know it feels like it's over. Macarthur lose to the Wanderers, embarrassingly, really, but it's still there. It's still in their hands. Mariners take points off the Jets. They're going to be flying high now in their heads, but, you know, they've still got work to do to make up those spots. So it's just anybody's game, and it's really just who can bounce back and not really be too reactive to what happened on the weekend, because it's not game per game, right? There's so much that it's still in the balance after a game's result, that it's more about teams who are like seeing this as more of a marathon rather than a sprint will benefit, because yeah, it's easy to lose your heads on a week by week basis. But yeah, the teams that are looking to the future and looking at 8 games from now, they're the teams that are going to be set up mentally to kind of compete in these coming games.
And crucially for the Central Coast Mariners, that catch-up game that we talk about is this week, Wednesday night, against Macarthur FC. So that's going to have really, really big consequences in terms of essentially the winner of that game will sit in 6th position as we go into the next full round of A-League competition next weekend. But Christian, they're going to be buoyed by, as Will says, getting a point off the high-flying Jets. They've stopped the streak at 8. That is as it stands. They will not match the Western Sydney Wanderers record of 10. This was a game that had many, many chances, though. It really could have gone either way. There's obviously the offside goal that was disallowed. I think Eli Adams was the one that tucked it away. This was the big moment of controversy in the F3 derby on Saturday afternoon that could have gone really either way. It was quite tight, and it determined the game at the end of the day.
I don't agree with the call. I just don't. I just think, and Will's going to jump in here and disagree, but I don't know. I just think the refs don't have a feel for the game anymore. It's like, I watched that vision again. I'm watching it right now. I've watched it about 20 times. So I think it's Will Dobson, I believe, who is in an offside position, runs back, and he's like obviously interfering with the play. That's why the ref has gone to, the VAR, and Will's, going like that,
yes,
nodding his head and saying, yes, correct. But does that mean that he's really interfering with play, though, just because he's in that position? Would the defender have got there anyway? Because the player who crossed the ball was going to cross the ball anyway. I don't think he would have got there. I don't think he would have got there.
Okay.
That's just my personal opinion.
Okay, it's a personal opinion then. Okay. I don't know, that's just not how the game needs to function. It can't be based off a personal opinion of like the laws are set out in a way that he's literally by all definitions interfering in play. Like the defender is unable to track back, and he could have gone to ground and challenged for that ball. He couldn't because Dobson's in the way. Like that is just interfering play. So instead of a bunch of what ifs, I don't think he could have got there. Maybe he could have. It's like he didn't get the chance to because the player's interfering, and that's offside. So that's how I see it.
We have these discussions all the time about players interfering with goalkeeper side. And you're a keeper, Will. You know this,
yes.
Right? I think there's been so many of these calls where you can clearly see that it's not interfering with the goalkeeper side, but because the player is in an offside position, the referee calls it anyway. I don't know.
Yeah,
I might be wrong, but this, yeah. That's just how I feel.
You're talking about the instances where the goalkeeper wouldn't have saved that anyway. He didn't have a chance.
It's like the Macamoldi in the last original rivalry that, rocket into the top corner that Smiths is probably not getting to, but there was a player in an offside position.
It's just so unfortunate that some of them are obvious and some of them are just tiptoeing the line of maybe you could have saved it. I don't know. It's impossible to adjudicate. It is just impossible to legislate for the thin line that, what constitutes a savable shot? Should the ability of the goalkeeper be factored into the decision? You know what I mean? If Courtois would have saved that, but Alex Robinson wouldn't have, what's the difference to it? How tall's the keeper? Now we're going to bring in, XGOT, expected goals on target into it. Where was the ball on target? It was at top corner. It's crazy. There's no threshold that just makes this all work. It is got to be a blanket statement, and if it's got to be a blanket statement, it's got to be in favor of the player, the defender in this instance, who didn't get a chance to see if he could have got there. I think that's just the fairest way to do it. And I know it's an ugly feeling if you're on the wrong side of it. And I know you're not, you got no skin in this game, Christian, but it's just, it's got to go one way. It's got to be blanket one way, and I feel like this is the way that hurts less overall.
I assume you're with Will, Lachie.
I think it sucks, but I think you have to give it as a no goal because like Will says, there are certain things in sport, and we all watch AFL as well. One of the problems with refereeing in that game is just that all the rules are so subjective, so you can never get anyone to agree on anything. So some of the rules and the laws of the game are written in a way that is not necessarily the purest form of what you can do, but it is written in a way that makes the officiating easier. So as soon as there's that even chance of, Will Dobson interfering with the play from an offside position, then the referee is just given offside because it makes it easy to officiate. And it doesn't feel pure, I guess, because just like Macamoldi, Eli Adams has rocketed in a great goal, Christian, in an F3 derby that feels like it, should set the roof off. If they had a roof, but unfortunately it's denied. I think you just have to live that way.
Yeah, no, I can see where you're both coming from. I just think it's just very harsh.
The game's gone.
No, I wouldn't go that far. It's not the worst call in the world. I'm just saying from a ref's point of view, do you have to really make that call? And I guess what you guys are saying is if it's in the letter of the law, then you have to call it right. Otherwise, where do you sort of draw that line? So I understand from that perspective, but I just thought, just watching it over and over again, I just think, I don't know, could you maybe just give the goal? But again, it can go both ways.
There's no advantage to the attacking side, defensive side. It's more advantage to the player that was disadvantaged, if you know what I mean. He just didn't get a chance to show if he could get there or not. But as I said, I get the optics one of the goalkeeper just always a finish being rocketed in, wouldn't have saved it anyway. That's frustrating. That's ugly. But it's, I don't know. That's what you end up with. But instances like this, I feel like this is highlighted why it exists.
Was this the key moment, Will? Did you feel like either side on the balance of play throughout the rest of the 90 deserved to get it done?
I feel like the Mariners probably edged it after 90 minutes overall, but until this incident, let's say, it was definitely edging towards the Jets. They were just super unlucky to really hit the post in a few crucial moments, and they couldn't make the most of their hot start because they did start a fair bit quicker than the Mariners did. But this new look Mariners side has a lot of pace, and they will continue to challenge you for 90 minutes. And that's, really exciting for Mariners fans. I think the team's evolved a long way from where they were at the start of this season, and it's a more balanced midfield. I think that's enabling that as well. That really makes them relentless, I think, for all 90 minutes. And they're not a nice team to play against, I think, now. Jets struggled to control the pace of the game, and I think the Mariners kind of, we're putting them on their back foot, which they haven't experienced much in these last couple of, in their run-in. And that's even with the Mariners having to make some early substitutions, and they lost a few, key personnel. But I think after 90 minutes, you'd say that was probably a fair result. Definitely up until that incident, the Jets really were unlucky to not be able to capitalise off their early momentum.
A number of statistical anomalies in this game as well, Christian. So the Newcastle Jets, obviously the streak ends, 8 wins consecutively. That's now broken. So that's now etched into the history books of the A-League. It's their first draw in the season as well, somehow. It was 12 wins, 6 losses. Now it's their first draw, so they got a single point on the board. And in the season where one team has stood out so far from the rest, the team that pretty much everyone else had predicted to finish bottom of the table in the Central Coast Mariners are the team that are undefeated against them and have 4 points to their name after 2 F3 derbies so far.
That's just how it works sometimes. And I think if you're a Jets fan, you shouldn't be too disheartened about, picking up a point here, because yes, the win streak is over, but you're going to expect this in these sorts of rivalries where, it's going to be a hard battle in the midfield. It's going to be difficult to win those 50-50 battles. Like sometimes it just has to be a slug, right? A slugfest, and you have to try and get the win one way or another. Will touched on it that the Jets had their opportunities. It's not like they didn't create anything. It's just sort of one of those days where the ball didn't want to go in the back of the net. That offside call as well. So, I think in terms of the overall football and how they played, I think there's nothing too much to be concerned about. Because, again, you come up against a rival like the Mariners, who are obviously going to be up and about for this game. And the game could have gone either way. And for the Jets, you take the positive in that you take a point away from home in Gosford, and you're still unbeaten, right? I mean, how many games are they unbeaten? I think it's 9 games now unbeaten since that game against MacArthur when they lost 5-4. So I think it shouldn't be panic stations just because of this result. I think they're still trending in the right direction. I think Milligan will say that to his players as well. But I think they're still in a pretty good position. Obviously sitting in first, 2 points clear of Auckland still. And they should still take confidence from this, getting a point and not actually losing the game, because the Mariners, on the flip side, also had their chances as well to actually put this game to bed, which they didn't. So all credit to the Jets getting that clean sheet. And I think I mentioned as well, the Jets scored in something like 11 straight games, and they did. Obviously, that streak was broken as well. So it just goes to show how closely fought this contest was.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think many, apart from you, Will, had a 0-0 pegged in this one. Congratulations on your tip. 2 other results in a somewhat similar vein. Auckland FC getting their 3-0 win over Melbourne City. And then Sydney FC would just come off the back of full time there at Henry Stadium, not Sky Stadium. That one caught me by surprise. But a 1-0 results there as well. Will, for the first time, it feels like in a long time, 2 teams on the high end of the table beat 2 teams on the bottom end of the table, as they should. Normality somewhat reigning supreme eventually.
Yeah, which kind of resulted in two kind of less interesting affairs, really. They were kind of felt business as usual and a bit like rudimentary in that, and not as thrilling as we've come to kind of expect. I think those games, in particular, the Sydney Wellington one that we just finished was really hard to stay focused for 90 minutes watching that one. It was, I don't know, I feel for Sydney FC, like they're doing well, their results are there, but they just do look like they run out of ideas really quickly, and they kind of just keep trying the same thing over and over and over, and they kind of rely on their technical kind of superiority to most teams, and when that comes off, they get just a moment of class, and they can out-skill you and work a good chance and finish it, and that's game done. And then they were kind of, I wouldn't say good enough to hold out Wellington for 90 minutes. I think there was plenty of chances that the Phoenix had there to get one back. And it was, I mean, we're going to touch on it probably, the penalty decision. I think that's a big game changer in this one. But I think Sydney were kind of lucky to get this result.
I feel on the balance of play, like the two teams that lost here, Wellington and City, they've got so much else going on. Wellington, obviously, off the back of the Derby loss and Chiefy resigning in the middle of the week. Well, not in the middle of the week, right after the game, really, and having to get settled in under Chris Greenacre. And we will talk about the penalty. I do love the build-up to the goal for Sydney. Ben Garuccio is like found himself on the right-hand side off the back of a corner or something. And about 10 or 15 minutes before it, he found himself in the penalty area and cut inside on his right foot. And he had like 3 different opportunities to shoot. And he just said, no, I'm going to do absolutely everything I can to get around on my left foot. And he couldn't find the space, ended up shooting with his right, and it didn't go very well. And you can see on that run down the right wing for the goal, he gets to the baseline. He just does not, he's too scarred by the shot. He does not want to pass it on his right foot. So he turns his body and plays it across with his left, and he gets the goal, which is good. But that's a win that Sydney desperately needed. And then for Auckland, Christian, they're coming up against the Melbourne City side. They've got Asia in midweek. They've got that to worry about. But City were also in the unfortunate position of, really needing points in order to save their A-League season. I know a lot of the communication from fans in the last 24 hours have been, well, that might actually just rule us out. That might be the result that makes it just a little too tough. But Auckland were convincing. I don't know. Maybe Steve Corica has figured out that the secret to winning in New Zealand is just clearing the ball really, really high up in the air and watching the opposition defence just completely fail to deal with a clearing header.
Yeah, especially that second goal. I think that's what you're referring to. Poor defending from City's part, though. And full credit to Auckland for being able to punish him. I believe it was Jesse Randall who put that one away. I think he's top goal scorer in the league as well. Puts him up to about 9 goals, I believe, this season, the Golden Boot. So, yeah, I think they can obviously score goals in different ways, different outlets to turn to. And I think Corica hasn't had to change too much in terms of his philosophy and the way he's playing, right? At home, they're being dominant as always. City, I thought, struggled a bit for answers in terms of, when they advanced the ball in the final third. Just nothing was quite clicking, right? I think that's sort of been the story of their season, at least domestically, because we know the story in Asia, they've been very, very good. And they've had sort of those key individuals to bail them out at times. But, when it came to this game, I think Auckland just managed the game well. And I think I've said it time and time again when it comes to Auckland, they just know when to hit on the counter. They know when to absorb pressure, sit back. They know when to control the game, get on the ball. I think this is a perfect example throughout the whole 90 minutes of this game. They just do it so well. And that's why they're just such a threat, I think. And for me personally, they're still the favourites to win the championship, not necessarily to finish top spot, because I think the Jets are obviously right under being 2 points clear. But in terms of the grand final, I still think they're slightly favoured because they know how to win in different ways. And we've had criticisms, for example, Sydney FC, when the going gets tough, can they grind out results? For the Jets as well, I know they're going on an unbelievable run, but, if they pick up a couple injuries or, if things don't really go their way, how will they respond to that adversity? So I think Auckland have shown that they're in pole position to go all the way. But I think this result at home, 3-0, dominant, clean sheet, you couldn't really ask for much more, really.
It was comprehensive, wasn't it? And Jesse Randall as well. He's having an exceptional season. That just a little clipped pass to Mai on the far post for the final goal as well. It's just such a moment of quality, right? Just to be okay, he's over there at the far post, but how do I get him the ball and flight it at the perfect weight and just lands right on top of his head? It was really, really good.
Yeah,
and it was convincing.
Exactly what I was going to say, Lachie, just to jump off the back there. Yeah, I feel like I see so many Auckland goals that they have one option to score, but they execute it. They find that player at the back stick. It was a 2v4 basically. But they play the exact right ball. He's got a free header at the back stick. They play the perfect ball in. I think, I don't know who scores the goal, but he loses, the Auckland player loses Bayach's mark.
Rogerson, yeah.
Rogerson. Free header. He puts the ball into the perfect, top of the 6-yard box, everything.
With really poor defending as well, must be said.
And yeah, they're all in sync every game. So they made it look easy.
They did. And then just to tie up the Wellington games, Christian, the disallowed penalty for Wellington, it feels unfortunate. If there's been a couple at that specific end of the ground that have really not gone the Wellington Phoenix's way this season, the ball comes in, there is a clear shove from Ryan Grant into the back of Nagasawa, goes down, penalty is given live on field. We know that you're the typical advocate of, oh, go have a look, mate. What did you think about the decision? And I think there's also two parts here. What did you think about VAR's choice to suggest an on-field review as well?
When I first saw it live, I thought it was soft. But then when I saw the replay, you see Ryan's body go into the attacker. Who was it again that got fouled in the box? Nagasawa. I think once you see the defender lean his body in, you have to give a penalty. As soft as it may seem, I think you've got to give that penalty. And to your second part of my thoughts on the ref going to the VAR, I mean, yes, you know, obviously where I stand on that, where I think the referee for those sorts of things should have a look, regardless whether it's soft or not. But I guess it's one of those. Have a look. I guess it's one of those where once you see it in slow motion, it makes it look worse than what it is. I think that's what people will sort of make the point for those who believe that it's not a penalty. So, yeah, I get it's a tough one, but I can see why Phoenix fans would be a bit infuriated by it. But again, like I said, once the defender leans your body, into the player, then you're basically asking for trouble, right? And I think Ryan Grant's reaction, you could see straight away, he sort of put his hands up. He was like a bit, shoulders up. He's like, oh, what have I done here? Like trying to sort of seem more innocent. He knew what he was doing. But yeah, I think probably Sydney were a bit fortunate, I guess, to get away with it.
I think, look, there's Nagasawa is kind of moving backwards. So the contact is obviously going to happen. But as soon as Ryan Grant extends his arm into the back of an opposition player, I feel like you're always just putting yourself in danger. And no, he's probably not getting to the ball. And it is probably, a softish penalty. For me, I was happy that it was given. But then I think the next step, is there is a clear arm from Ryan Grant into the back of a Wellington attacker. That's at least looks like a foul. I do not know how the VAR then determines that that's a clear and obvious error. Just to send for a review, let alone Tim Danaska's actually coming over and overturning his own decision.
Yeah, that's not something where, okay, maybe the ref didn't notice the studs halfway up, or it was, it was a quick instant, so you didn't notice a foot slip over the ball and into the shin. But it was like the center official saw the impact. That's not something that needs re-refer. That's re-refereeing, as we said in the group chat during the game. That's not what it's there for. It was subjective call. He saw a push in the back. That's a foul. You can't let that happen. This being overturned in the way it has means that, not that it sets a massive precedent, but this should be punished, right? Even if Nagasawa was backing in a little bit, I saw Grant put force behind it as well. I saw movement there. It wasn't just to go down easy back into him and look for the foul. I did see that there was definitely a push there, and there was movement. So, it was frustrating to kind of have this one overturned, and I'd be very frustrated if I was a Phoenix supporter. I don't think that's not the point of VAR. Just, I don't know, it changes the, it's not the functionality that it's supposed to give to the game, and it just doesn't add anything. What does it add?
You know what I'd love to see? Referees come out after the game and explain their decision. I think we'll probably never get to that stage, but if we can see that, if we can actually get their view and say, okay, why did you make that decision? What did the people in the VAR room say to you to overturn that call? I think if we got that clarity and that insight, I think for fans would make it a bit easier to actually understand, okay, how did you actually come to that decision? Because we're sort of sitting here saying, oh, how did he do that? Why did he overturn it? It wasn't clear and obvious. If we can at least get some sort of explanation, even if it's from the league the next day, and say, just to clear the air, I think that would just be much better than just leaving it out there for us to discuss.
Yeah, I prefer your first one there, Christian, because kind of Phil Moss does come out and he's just always sides with the ref. That's very partisan and it's not very helpful. But I feel like the referee coming from, they'd actually do that in the Bundesliga, where they have 5-10 minutes to watch it back after a game, and then the refs come and the sideline reporter goes to them and they can explain any decisions that happened. And I feel like, that's really helpful in a lot of ways. A lot of the time you just get the ref kind of doubling down on what they decided, but you'd be interested to hear the specific interaction that happened here. Because all we hear on the field when they have their PA system is I watched it back on replay, on review, there was no foul. It's okay, but why? there kind of clearly was. What's the threshold that was not crossed that you thought, in your opinion? Like, that's what they can answer in an actual longer explanation in 2 minutes after the game. I don't think it ever happened, but I think, yeah, in the Bundesliga it does. And so I think that's definitely like a fan-led kind of league, and they get the treatment like that.
Lachie disagrees because he's a hockey referee, so he doesn't want to get interviewed after games and say, "Oh, this is why I made the decision."
I'm very wary of things like that creeping into the game. I think to a certain extent, referees need a safe space to be able to do their own thing. I think there's a lot of pros and a lot of cons in particular to those ideas.
Protecting the referees.
But some of them change. You never know. You never know. I will say though, like, there definitely does feel. Someone mentioned it on commentary in this Wellington game as well, that maybe since Christmas or in the last few months, I actually think it's been the last few years, there's been a direct push to make like the contact threshold for a penalty go up. So a lot of these, probably, honestly, this example would probably be given a penalty last season or the season before, but maybe not this year in the last 12 months. But again, VAR is not there to have another look. And, re-referee the game. You got to be able to, in certain moments, just stick with the referee's decision. And unfortunately for Wellington, you look back at Armiento versus Josh Rollins about a month ago as well. It's another one that, I don't know, I thought it was a penalty and Wellington haven't got a penalty. So this situation has cost them points. So it's unlucky for them. Speaking of victory, let's go to Friday night at Amy Park. Christian, good touring away support for the Reds as well. Our man Jacob was in the away end. It was quite fun going back and forth with him during the game. A tight 1-1 doesn't really do a whole lot for either team, though. I really think both of these teams will be absolutely devastated that they didn't get a win in this match. They both had opportunities to. Keegan Jelassic, I thought, was the best player on the park. For some reason, he got substituted in the 65th minute. I didn't quite understand. It's not often that you get Panakikianis looking as silly as he did for that goal, coming down the right wing, and then obviously De Cooley on the rebound smashing home the 1-1. And then you have the second half opportunities. Ryan White with that amazing little Trivela pass to Jovanovic, who, the funny story with that miss into the post is that he went on to the Adelaide United supporters Facebook group the next day and said sorry with a little love heart. And there was some very wholesome responses from a lot of the people to that post, which was quite funny to see. But Victory had so much of the territorial dominance in that second half, yet it felt like when those subs came midway through the second period, Jelassic goes off, Juan Mata goes off as well. It was just, they were playing lots of through balls in behinds, not really to anyone, a lot of missed passes, and they couldn't turn any of that possession dominance into actual, clear-cut opportunities to threaten the goal.
Yeah, probably tend to agree with you in terms of the subs that Dillis made. I think the 65th minute mark in between there. Jelacic probably, he got a yellow card, I think 3 or 4 minutes before he got subbed off. So I don't know if Dillis is going to try and make that excuse of, I wanted to take him off because he's on a yellow. I think Dillis sometimes makes these subs that he doesn't need to in certain games where he goes, okay, like I need to bring 2 or 3 players on at the same time to try and freshen things up and get some change going, where I thought Victory were pretty much, you could say, in control for most parts of that first half of the second half, if that makes sense, before those subs. So it's like, why wouldn't you play out for an extra, maybe, 5 or 10 minutes, see if you can get something and then make those subs in around 70, 75 minutes time. But then on the flip side, you get some pushback saying, you should have made these subs earlier. So I think sometimes for coaches, you can't really win. It's a lose-lose situation. But there were, heaps of chances at both sides. That Jovanovic hitting the post. I think everyone couldn't believe that he missed that open net. Jason Davidson actually ran back onto the goal line to try and clear it. He obviously didn't touch it because he hit the post, but I don't think he sort of interfered, in terms of putting pressure on Jovanovic, because Jovanovic just had his eyes on the ball at all times. And then just, obviously, that's the reason why I think he missed the target, just didn't look up. And he's just missed it altogether, which is obviously a real shame, because that obviously would have given Adelaide the advantage, that 2-1 lead. But I thought, all in all, I think Victory, you could argue, slightly deserved the 3 points if you had to choose someone to pick who should have won this game. But yeah, as you will, original rivalries are always this, closely fought. Juan Mata again with another assist, which didn't bode well for my prediction, saying that he wouldn't get a goal or an assist in this game. So I was quite disappointed that it eventuated. But yeah, Jelacic, as you said, he had a terrific game. Just besides the goal, I thought, his all-round movement, his ability to connect with other players, I thought was really outstanding. So yeah, a bit stiff for him only to see 65 minutes of the game. But yeah, Dillis will obviously look back on that and look at his tactical changes and think, okay, how can I improve and how can I do better for the next one? So a point isn't the worst result for both teams, but as you said from the start, Lachie, it doesn't do too much at the same time in terms of ladder position and trying to cement that top 6 place. So yeah, interesting times.
Yeah, they need wins, don't they? And I don't know, Will, does a point feel good for Adelaide? It's hard to say. Like, as soon as you see the Jovanovic miss and you see a full-time score of 1-1, you go, oh, well, they should have scored. They should have won the game 2-1. There was a lot of victory pressure as well, but I don't know, it's just one of those games that didn't really fall their way.
Yeah, I don't think... I look at the table and I go, I think this is a game where me as a coach, I would have risked 1 point to gain 3 because I think 3 points is a lot more important than 1. I think 1 may as well be 0. You've still got breathing room. Like, that's not vital. It's not a vital point that's really kept them in contention. It's a point that's stagnated them. May as well have pushed and really pushed. And that's where, Dillis's game management comes into play, as Christian was talking about. And he just seems to he doesn't want to look like he's behind the 8 ball and he wants to look like proactive as a coach. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It doesn't hurt to be, a little slow-footed just to read the game. But he's kind of always felt like a coach that doesn't really read the game too well. He'll have his match plans and go into games prepared. But then once in a game, I think his in-game management kind of lacks a little bit. And maybe it's that, I don't know, lack of confidence in himself and to assert himself in ways. It's very much like we just see like for like changes and Vergas comes on for Nduka and it's very like that's just how I've always known Dillis to play, not watching week in week out, but he did the same with Fornaroli. He's like I get to 60 minutes and I swap my striker for striker. It's never like a change to the system or it's never adapting to the game scenarios. So yeah, as I said, I think I would have tried to risk it more in this certain match. I think 3 points benefits one of the sides a lot more than 1 point does both of them. So. And just say on the Mata assist, Christian, I think you're close. Like, it was more 2 Kikianis errors that led to that goal. I don't think it was very much a one Mata assist, but that's not what the team sheet says.
I was praying that Kikiakis got a touch on it and there might have been, I don't know, his assist. So
yeah, I don't think it's... No, not properly played at, not like it was just, he just...
Kikianis' body position was so poor though. I mean, the way his body was sort of, I know it was very difficult, like in the moment.
It was an awkward one,
It was an awkward one, yeah, and obviously...
It didn't look good though.
It didn't look good. Obviously victory capitalised.
Yeah.
Not often, as I said earlier, not often a player of his quality gets made to look like that as well. And yeah, with the substitutes, I think just at a certain point, you just got to leave your best players in the field, don't you? Obviously, his problem is that he's got a lot of top end talent that he wants to give game time to, so they're all happy. But we're getting
it's just sorry, he gets an alert on his phone and he's set a calendar reminder.
He's got an alarm.
Yeah. Oh, sub Mata off at 65 minutes. Like that's just not how you do it. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. Well, we're getting to that point in the season where you need wins if you want to make an impact on where you are in the table, and that's the same for Brisbane and Perth, Christian. It was a 1-1 draw that, again, does not do a whole lot of good for either team. These sides need wins. What about the goal, though? Just 2 goals
so good.
Of vastly different quality levels, and entertainment was up there for both of them, to be fair. But Long off the free kick, they've got the through the legs. They had 2 guys in a separate wall to block the eyesight as well. Smacks it into the bottom corner for the goal. And then Eustace Salas at the other end, it felt like he stuck out a leg when he really didn't need to. And I tell you what, Dean Bazana's told it to him as well.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that own goal. Just as you said, he didn't need to stick a boot out at all. And sometimes, again, it's those awkward positions where you feel as though you have to try and make that move. You have to try and stick a leg out. You have to try and do something because you don't want to stand still and not do anything. And then if they do eventually score, you're like, oh, why didn't you do anything? So again, it's sort of like you can't win in that scenario. But Chris Long, that goal for Brisbane, that free kick, so well worked. With the nutmeg. Just a bit of deceiving and just the shot in general, just so much power into that bottom corner, which obviously gave Brisbane the lead, and that obviously didn't last too long, right? 3 minutes later, that own goal occurs, it's back to 1-1, and I guess nothing too extravagant happened after that. You could say probably a few chances from set pieces, which you kind of knew was going to be the outcome, right? Especially Brisbane, who rely solely on, a lot of these set piece opportunities, given how they sit deep, they try and stay compact and try and hit on the counter. They rely on, set pieces and, these little moments of individual brilliance, which just didn't quite come off for them. But in terms of the ladder, I think Brisbane, if I had to choose one team to finish sixth, I'd say it's Brisbane still. I know the Mariners are still in some really good form, but I just think these are the games we have to try and grind out results one way or another. And I think Brisbane, yes, there have been, a downward spiral in recent weeks. They've had to try and, regroup some of that form. But I think Valkanis is still the right coach for this moment to try and get the best out of this group and to get as many points as possible. Because I don't think MacArthur are going to stay there for too long. I see them dropping out pretty shortly. So I think as it stands now, probably Mariners or Brisbane to compete for that sixth spot. It's going to be close though.
Fascinating. I do feel like Brisbane were unlucky not to get 3 points here. They had a couple other chances. Definitely had the better of the game as well. But the other angle to this match, obviously this was played out at KO Stadium. This was a match that was originally fixtured for Suncorp Stadium. To be fair, in processes that have improved significantly since the last few seasons, it was decided a fair few weeks ago that Suncorp Stadium was going to be overused, so they moved it out preemptively to try and avoid that late changing scenario. But it is the fourth game that's been played away from Suncorp Stadium. It's highlighted again the need for a separate boutique stadium in Brisbane. And a couple of volunteers from the Raw Supporters Foundation and the Fair Play for Football group got around. They crowdfunded a little bit of money. They raised $1,000 in 3 days to create 5,000 postcards that they went out to games. They started with the women's match at home a couple of weeks ago. They did it again here this weekend at the Raw and got fans to sign these postcards, and then they're strategizing on exactly how to deliver them to different members of parliament and people who can hopefully make an impact on getting that legacy for Brisbane, whether it's through the Olympic funding for 2032 or some other means as well. But that train is rolling on. And that story that we wrote on ramblaustralia.com came out earlier in the week, and it got a little bit of noise. And there was a Raw supporters meeting during the week as well with some of the higher ups of the club, Will. And Kaz Patafta, who is the CEO of the club, honestly, really impressively to me, came out and straight up said, as the CEO of the football club, before he's gone, he will deliver the club a stadium, which is a really rare thing, I think, for a leader of an A-League football club to go out with such desire and have something concrete out to fans like that, which I think is really encouraging. I mean, obviously, who knows how long he's going to be there? It's not a very exact timeline, but knowing that the club are pushing this and seem to be making an active change to really leading the charge for this themselves rather than letting other parties do it for them seems really encouraging.
Yeah, it's a big problem we have in sports governance and CEOs of clubs, any person in sport management, representing a club or a league and any organization kind of thing like that. I think it's so easy for people to be short-sighted and focused on their tenure. And I'm sure I've brought this up this point before, but I don't know, they only think about their reign at a club. They think short-sighted. They need to, do the best they can for the stakeholders at that moment. They'll be gone in 3 years. They know that. They know it's kind of a rolling gig, especially in the sport industry. So it is so easy for them to talk about future infrastructure and things like that without knowing that they're not going to be the ones that have to implement, right? But it does really seem, as you said, Lachie, impressive that Kaz has really, put it on himself. He said, I will make sure that is at least my legacy while I leave. That is what you need, and that's kind of the person you want in charge of your club. He knows that that's the best way forward for the club. He knows the fan sentiment is like, that is just the massive headline of what they care about and what they need, that's going to benefit them, right? KO is fine as a venue. It's just so far away. I can get, we can go from Sydney to Gosford quicker than from Brisbane to KO on like public transport. It's ridiculous. I know, and when there's always, as we said, this week it got sorted, but there's been confusion. I know when the Mariners played there a couple of weeks ago, half the fixtures listings still said Suncorp, and there was a lot of confusion around that. But yeah, going back to kind of the ownership of the club and the governance, it's really important that the top is aligned with kind of the whole reason the club exists is for the fans, and it's really, it's obvious that they are aligned on this issue, and they just need to, we see with the postcard kind of effort, we see that we just need to highlight this issue to the right people, and that's all it takes. It really doesn't take much, but it's good to see that they're aligned as a club, and that unity can only help them achieve what they need and what they want.
100%. All right, the final game of the round, and one of the more, I don't know if you would say it was surprising, but definitely impactful for results. The Western Sydney Wanderers 4-0 win away from home to the Macarthur Bulls. This, I think, I didn't get to watch this game live, Christian, but it was a real shock when I looked at the score and then watching the highlights, this is just not a typical performance from a Milej Stajovski team. It just feels like everything that he's kind of known for, that it just worked against them. Like, yes, you have the very unfortunate, ref block moment against Luke Bratton, but just like usually, I don't know how to describe it other than that usually doesn't happen to a team coached by Milej Stajovski. Like usually they control what they can really, really well, and any little moments like that are usually dealt with, but it just wasn't in this game. And obviously Alex Robinson's come in, made a little bit of error, got punished by Ryan Fraser as well. It seems like this may be the end of Philip Curto's time in the A-League, which, he's been such a special player for the league over a number of years now. But, Dylan Cicluna as well coming in, really reminding everyone of the form line that he had at the start of last season before he went down with his injury. I make it that he beat 4 players one-on-one in that assist. He does the roulette around Vickery, then gets past 2 of the most experienced players in the competition in Caceres and Luke Bratton, and then Talbot on the wing as well. And then to still have the energy and the touch to play that ball in for Borrello was exceptional. And, if under a Stajovski team, they're so organised, they're so compact, you don't have a player that beats 4 Macarthur Bulls. That just doesn't happen. And coming off the disappointment of Asia last week and now a couple of losses in the row, and really threatening to fall out of the out of the top 6, as we say, during the week when they play the Mariners, this season is very, very quickly just unravelling for Macarthur.
Yeah, I think it was probably that opening goal. I think it was around the 6-minute mark. Garkovic opened the scoring. I think that probably, sort of set the tone, and that didn't bode well for Macarthur, who are already low in confidence, as you said, out of Asia, not doing too well in the league, only picked up 2 points in their last 9 before this game against the Wanderers. Nothing just seems to be going right. I mean, it's not like they didn't create. They had a fair few opportunities. Nothing really clear cut, though, I'd say. They had, more possession, which you'd expect. In this fixture, Wanderers away from home, they're always going to come there and try and just, pick their moments. And they did, right? I think they only had about 6 shots on target for the whole match and scored 4. That just goes to show how clinical they were. And it can be one of those days where you just go, okay, the opposition were just too good. They were able to be, clinical in the right moments. And it was a case of we weren't. But I think it goes much deeper than that, where Macarthur just aren't playing the best football at the moment. And it's just telling in their results. How Stajovski changes that, I don't have the answer. But yeah, in terms of just looking at the score, if you weren't watching this game, you think, wow, 4-0 away from home. It's like, that's just not typical Stajovski team to be losing in that manner. But they're in this position now, Macarthur, where they're just struggling to get wins, let alone draws and, points here and there. So that's why I think Macarthur are in real danger of actually falling out of the top 6 sooner rather than later. And for the Wanderers, it's a big result because, they're still only 5 points behind 6, whereas they could have been on 17. And if they lose this game, it's okay. It's curtains shut. Like it's a game over. But at least they've given themselves this puncher's chance. It's going to be very unlikely, obviously, from this point in last position. I don't think anyone in the A-League has done that from round 19, finish, in last position and go, to make the finals. Would be very, very rare. But, I just loved the Wanderers, fight they showed in this match. Especially Thurgate, I thought Angus Thurgate played very well, breaking up the play. One of those players who obviously doesn't get much of the headlines sometimes, but I thought he was a real standout in this game against the Bulls. So I don't know whether Wanderers can sort of, build on this sort of mini momentum because, yes, it's just one game, but still something to build on, right? So, on the other side with MacArthur, how they bounce back, I just don't see it. I just don't see how they find that extra gear to get these wins because at the moment they just don't look a cohesive unit. It's sort of the same as last year. Remember at the back of January when they lost all those players and then they sort of went on a downward slide. This is sort of turning out to be the same thing. So it's going to be tough to see them making finals from here.
And especially like you're a team that's doing okay. You're in the knockouts of Asia. You're challenging for the 6. And then you bring in like a Socceroo with the experience of Mitch Duke in the January window, and you're thinking, okay, well, this is very different, as you say, Christian, to last year where we lost all our best players. We're bringing in probably one of our best players, and the form line is still trending down. But so they're going to need a big turnaround. The Wanderers, it feels like this is what we've been waiting for all season, really, Will. Like this is the quality that individually they've had and we've known they've had in their squad for the whole campaign, but they just never showed it. And it might be, I don't know what you think, a little bit too late.
Yeah, I do think so. I think just even riding off the momentum like with their fans and just as a club in general, I think it's a little bit too late in the season. It feels like, the club or the fans just penned a letter to the club. It seems like they were already kind of writing off this season. So just momentum-wise, it does feel like, quite late. But, few additions that they've made in Farrell, I think this was up to his, S-Housery set normal self and Fraser there adds that quality up there. And I think, as you mentioned, Christian, Thurgate works really well in the spaces that Fraser kind of leaves behind when he wants to tuck inside. I think, that combination is really, really lethal down the left-hand side. But I think this is a case of we saw a team at their ceiling and we saw one team at their floor. And the difference in class was apparent. The season for the Wanderers so far has just been like they have not been at that ceiling at all. But we know this is what we always say, they have that potential. They should be up there. They should be like this every week. But for one reason or another, they aren't. But, the wins like these kind of gives the fans something to hold on to and something to look forward to next year. But I do feel like we say this, they end the season strong. We go, okay, maybe this is the year they've worked it out. And then we just go into another whole cycle of the slow starts, coaching turnover. It does feel a bit cyclical at that club at the moment. Just another thing on this match, I guess, was the kind of a mistake from Robinson there, who's come in from Curto as well. I wanted to touch on. It's good that the club seem like they are behind Robinson, and it wasn't Stojowski in the presser, as Poletti let us know. But we thought another Italiano would happen there. Maybe if he did go to the press, he would have announced his resignation as well. But it seems like, the club are behind him, and that's what you need to do with a young keeper who's coming into the number 1 spot, and somebody with as much potential as Robinson, who I know is, a part of the under-20s teams and the under-aged national youth setups for the last couple of years. You can't just drop him after one game. I think there was really one error in the clearance. He just got pressured by I don't know who it was, maybe Kraev coming and pressing or Borello, and just hit it straight out to Fraser, who still has to do a lot for that finish, to be honest. His quality is just is very apparent. But he's still still very young, and hopefully he does get the rest of this season at least to show what he can do and have that consistency, because the worst thing you can do to ruin a keeper's mental side of their game is just drop them after one mistake.
Very good. All right, that'll do for this episode of the Round Ball Australia podcast. Christian, thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, Will.
Thank you.
Don't forget, plenty of football on this week. Melbourne City are playing in the Champions League Elite in the knockout phase on Tuesday night against Mark Jackson's Birmingham United as well. If they win that game in regular time, Australia will jump China in the coefficient. Yeah, go the coefficient and get an extra qualification spot in 2 years' time, which would be exciting. We've got the A-League on Wednesday night and, of course, the Women's Asian Cup all the way through the week. Keep your eye on the Dubcast for daily episodes as the tournament progresses. But that's it from us here today. Enjoy your week of football, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.